You're born somewhere in medieval Europe, or maybe Westeros if we're talking fantasy, and as a kid, you grew up hearing the epic tales. Knights in shining armor, rescuing royalty, winning grand tourneys, and living in massive, warm castles. It sounds like the ultimate dream job, right? Well, not for you, because you weren't born to a wealthy, noble family. You're essentially a peasant with a pointy stick, and your only path is to become a Hedge Knight. And, spoiler alert, it is going to absolutely suck. Unlike the highborn kids who get sent off to fancy lords at age 7 to be pages and squires, your path is a lot dirtier. You don't get taught reading, writing, or refined etiquette. If you're lucky, you get taken in by an older, worn-out Hedge Knight. You become his squire, but that mostly means you're his unpaid servant. You spend your childhood cleaning his rusty armor, shoveling manure, and maybe, just maybe, he teaches you how to hold a heavy iron sword without slicing off your own foot.
Wow.
Your training ground isn't a castle courtyard. It's in the mud behind a tavern, getting knocked to the dirt by a guy who smells like cheap ale. So, why are they called Hedge Knights?
What?
Because you are so incredibly broke that you don't even own a tent. When you travel from town to town looking for employment, you literally sleep outside. Your bed is the dirt under a hedge or a tree. You are constantly exposed to freezing rain, harsh winters, thieves, and whatever wild animals decide you look like a good midnight snack. You have no lands, no lord, no permanent roof over your head, and absolutely no money. Now let's talk about your gear. Real knights have custom-fitted 70-pound suits of gleaming plate armor that make them nearly invincible. You get the medieval equivalent of hand-me-downs. You've got a dented helmet you probably bought off a grave robber, a heavy chainmail shirt that's half rust, and a sword that's duller than a butter knife. And the horse? Noble knights ride massive, muscular war horses trained to trample people. You ride a bony, tired nag that looks like it might drop dead before you even reach the battlefield. To survive, you have to find work. But major lords don't want you. They have their own well-trained, wealthy armies. So you take the absolute worst jobs available.
What?
You get hired by paranoid merchants to guard their wagons from desperate bandits. You become the hired muscle for minor lords who need someone to collect taxes from starving peasants. You are basically a glorified medieval bouncer on horseback, constantly begging for a few miserable coins just so you can afford a stale loaf of bread and a slice of salted meat that might actually be rat. You might think, I'll just enter a grand tournament, win the joust, and get rich. Good luck with that. Tournaments require steep entry fees you can't afford. Even if you scrape the coins together, your bony nag isn't going to win a joust against a 1,500-pound trained warhorse. And the rules of the joust are brutal. If you lose, you have to forfeit your armor and your horse to the winner. That means you could instantly lose your entire livelihood in a single afternoon and be left with literally nothing. But let's say a massive war breaks out. A king calls his banners, and they need warm bodies. Congratulations, you're hired. But don't think you're going to be strategizing in the war tent. You are cannon fodder. In battle, you are thrown right onto the brutal front lines. The fancy nobles stay back, or they fight other nobles because they know they can get captured and ransomed for a huge payout. But you have zero ransom value. If an enemy knight sees you, he's not going to capture you. He's just going to run you through with a lance because you aren't worth the effort to keep alive. Let's say you miraculously survive the battle. You didn't get trampled or shot by a crossbow, but you did get a nasty cut on your arm. Today, you'd get some antibiotics. Back then, medical care basically consisted of a guy rubbing dirt and leeches on it. That cut gets infected. Because you don't have a warm bed or clean water to recover, you're back out sleeping in the dirt. A simple infection turns deadly in a matter of days. And that's your tragic reality. There are no epic songs sung about your bravery, no tapestries woven in your honor. You spent your entire life scraping by in the mud, fighting for rich guys who didn't even know your name, only to die young, penniless, and completely forgotten in an unmarked ditch. So yeah, being a Hedge Knight, definitely one of the absolute worst career choices in history.